Welcome to BioNTX Presents Inside Innovation. I am your host, Eric B. Moore, Chief Communications Officer at BioNorth Texas. This is a platform where we explore the pulse, potential, and people driving the life sciences and biotech ecosystem of North Texas, a community that's not just growing, but accelerating. Today's conversation brings us to the heart of what makes innovation thrive, the catalyst. That moment when belief, capital, and conviction collide to spark something greater than the sum of its parts. Few stories embody that spirit more powerfully than the one we're exploring today. The vision of Lyda Hill and the ongoing work of Lyda Hill Philanthropies and LH Capital. Their influence is not just seen in the skyline of Pegasus Park, but in the DNA of the North Texas innovation ecosystem itself. Joining me are two people, two friends, who are helping carry the vision forward. Matt Crommett, Managing Director of LH Capital and Lyda Hill Philanthropies. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. And Lili Clark, Senior Associate at Lyda Hill Philanthropies. Thank you so much for being here today as well.
Thank you for having us.
I am so glad to have you both, and I have looked forward to today on the calendar, and today is finally here. We wanted to start Inside Innovation from its origins and the very beginning. And no one represents origins and beginnings no greater, no better than you both here representing Lyda Hill Philanthropies and LH Capital. So let me start with this. Before we dive into the structure and strategy that is Pegasus Park, I want to start with something foundational, the idea of catalysts. Mm-hmm. So Matt, I've often reflected on what I like to call the nature of catalysts. That unique force that disturbs the silence just enough to awaken new possibilities. Catalysts are not always the loudest voices, but they're the ones who create the conditions for innovation to take root. So when you think about Lyda Hill and the role that vision has played across the region, how do you define the nature of catalysts, and what does that word mean inside the culture, inside the culture of Lyda Hill Philanthropies?
Sure, great question, and thanks again for having us.
Yes.
And so at Lyda Hill Philanthropies, we're all about supporting transformational advances in nature and science. And so part of that work, I think, inherently requires catalysts at some point. Somebody has to be the first, someone has to start the work. And we often look for places where Lyda can be that catalyst across the portfolio of nature and science investments and philanthropy. And we're sitting here in BioLabs. I think it's a good example of how our team was looking for things to do in the region to support biotech innovation, and having accessible wet lab space was one of the things that was needed. And Lyda was able to help catalyze that vision by supporting some of the equipment that's here, some of the build out of this space, so that these startup biotech companies had a place to go. What I will say is, yes, we've been a catalyst in certain respects in North Texas, but by no means was Lyda the first person to start thinking about supporting this ecosystem. We've been doing some work lately about sort of the evolution of the North Texas life sciences industry. And, in 1986, there was something called the Dallas Biomedical Corporation.
I remember.
Which local investors came together with some philanthropic backing as well to support some of the startups emanating out of UT Southwestern. So that's 40 years ago, at least, people were thinking about this work and getting it started. And it's really because of catalysts like that we're here today talking about all the different activity in the space. So on our team, I think we often start with, okay, what if we could support companies and scientists in North Texas to bring their medicines to market, to create more diagnostics and devices that help change patients' lives. What would that look like? Yes. And then which things are already out there that we can support and maybe be follow-on adopters of, and what other things do we need to catalyze to take a chance and see if there are more areas that we could excel at here in North Texas. So that's kind of how we think about it, and it's fun.
I love it. And for the record, Matt, I was 40 years ago. I don't want to date myself. I was 1 year old. I was very aware of what was going on.
So you remember it well.
I remember it well. I was walking around in diapers. So Lili, and thank you, Matt. Lili, one of the things that strikes me about Lyda Hill Philanthropies is how belief turns into structure. And Matt touched on that a little bit, and how ideas become ecosystems. When you look at Pegasus Park and other initiatives, what have you learned about what it truly takes to ignite innovation at scale? And then what does that spark look like behind the scenes? Take us behind the scenes. The show is called Inside Innovation, but it's also called Behind the Scenes. So take us behind the scenes.
Sure. Well, I think we kind of think a lot about this work in terms of making sure that we're creating the conditions for innovation to be successful. So we thought about that in a few ways, both at Pegasus Park, but also more broadly in the North Texas region. So a few of kind of the key ingredients that we think of as being necessary catalysts of innovation are, one, having the workforce. So we spent a lot of time with groups like Dallas College, our various community colleges and universities, to make sure that we have incredible talent for companies who are here or moving here. Second, we need to make sure that we have the venture capital ecosystem here. North Texas has, I think, the third largest community of family offices, so making sure that that community is galvanized and making sure that we're bringing in coastal investors as well. And then intellectual capital. We've had a long history of our universities, as Matt mentioned, generating incredible science, having 6 Nobel laureates down the road, #1 publisher in Nature at UT Southwestern, making sure that the science that's being generated there is able to leave the lab and reach patients. So the fourth kind of thing that we think about is where we're sitting, infrastructure. So making sure that spaces like Pegasus Park are well situated to make sure that innovation can thrive. And I think the core piece of this campus is about making sure that all of these ingredients that I've mentioned have a place to kind of commingle every single day. So we think a lot about being really intentional about community members who are here, so that it's not just the early stage companies in this space like BioLabs, but it's also the universities, it's also the venture capitalists, it's also the nonprofit community that are really, we found intentional ways to kind of get them to work together every day, and having a space like this was a big part of that.
I love it. You know, we just finished the IC3 Summit, and we've heard from sponsors, we've heard from investors who've come from various areas outside of the ecosystem. We've heard from members, and everyone's kind of saying the same thing. There's something special about the space. There's something special about the intentionality of the culture and the things that we're trying to do. And one of the things that Matt and I joke about is what they're experiencing is the Texas way, right? It's how we do it here in Texas. We're not going to be like any other region, but there's something special. And you sense it when you're in the ecosystem and you're on campus in the places that we exist here. So thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. It is fascinating to think about how belief becomes infrastructure, how a vision transforms into something tangible that people can walk into, as you've said, collaborate within, as you've said, and grow from. That naturally brings us to the next theme, the convergence of philanthropic and for-profit capital. I know, Matt, this is something we've done a few interviews before, and I love to hear you talk about this dynamic, one that I think is very unique to our ecosystem and one that I think that our audience should know more about in detail. So let's talk about how that interplay fuels a sustainable ecosystem like ours. And so, Matt, I'll start with you on this question. You've said that Pegasus Park represents what is possible when investment and philanthropy come together with a shared vision. And I love what is possible when investment and philanthropy comes together with that shared vision. That line captures, I believe, the essence of what convergence is, and I think you've done it beautifully. How purpose-driven capital and commercial infrastructure can coexist and reinforce one another. Can you take us inside, Matt, the relationship between LH Capital and Lyda Hill Philanthropies, how these two sides of the equation work together to create both impact and sustainability? If you can, again, take us inside how that works and coexist together.
For sure. So I think, to back up a second, we operate sort of as Lyda Hill's family office. And so that means both making for-profit investments with Lyda and nonprofit investments with Lyda in order to make the change that, we all want to see.
Yes.
And we're fortunate to be able to pull those different capital levers. We often call ourselves sort of tax status agnostic. It doesn't matter if it's a nonprofit or a for-profit. It really matters who's making the difference.
Yes.
And when you think about this industry, in this broader life sciences industry, you have a lot of nonprofit players, you have a lot of for-profit players. They all need to work together and be complementary to, boost an ecosystem like this. And so when I say that Pegasus Park is a nice example of this, it's because, yes, it is a for-profit real estate investment, but there is a huge nonprofit presence on this campus, whether it's through the dozens of nonprofit tenants we have here, including BioNTX, right? Or whether it's nonprofit accelerators that are here to support startups, whether it's health systems and universities that are tenants, or maybe just event hosts that come to Pegasus Park. They're all part of this, and they're all part of the healthcare ecosystem and this life sciences ecosystem, and they all kind of create their revenue in different ways.
Yes.
And so on our team, we're thinking, okay, you might think of it as two sides, right? You've got the for-profit and the nonprofit. We all do both, and so it doesn't really look like two sides of a coin in our team. It's more of a different ways to support a continuum rather than it being so black and white. And so in life sciences, fortunately, it's a great example where you really do require a lot of non-dilutive nonprofit support at the earliest stages of discovery in order to get the science to a point where it's then, venture ready investable. And so we see it on campus where we're next door to UT Southwestern, where we do a lot of biomedical research grants. We do that around the country with philanthropic support from Lyda. Then when those companies when that science gets to a point where it's ready to be commercialized, it still can use non-dilutive support. It also can use investment support, and that's something that they can come to this campus and find investors. They find a lot of venture capital firms coming to campus. They also find a lot of equipment that they can use with that capital, whether it's non-dilutive or dilutive, and grow their companies here. And so it becomes an example of, you might become a tenant at BioLabs as a small 1 or 2 person company that really is primarily supported with philanthropic capital. But by the time you're ready to graduate to our next building, Bridge Labs, and take 5,000-10,000 square feet, you've probably raised a Series A or a significant amount of venture capital. And Lyda can be a part of that journey throughout, and we're lucky on our team to be able to pull those different levers and support companies, and really work with partners all along the way to help support this ecosystem.
I love it. Every time I hear it, Matt, it just reminds me of, or it inspires me about what the future can be, right? And it set a mark about how all those elements can coexist together. I used to work in the impact segment years ago, in the sustainability segment, and one of the things I would always say, making money and doing good aren't mutually exclusive. You just have to think differently about the possibility. Right. So thank you for sharing that. That's something that I wanted our audience to hear. Press rewind, hear it again, and keep hearing it, because again, I think that's something very special and unique about our ecosystem. So Lili, as we think about this blended model, one that unites the economic outcomes with community value, as Matt so eloquently put, what are some of the lessons that others may take from this approach? One, and then how do you maintain clarity of mission while navigating market realities, where market realities are realities, and investment imperatives? So what lessons that we can take from this approach, and then how do we maintain that clarity?
Okay, so starting with lessons, I think the biggest thing that comes to mind for me is kind of starting with the problem that you're trying to solve. So because we're able to kind of deploy these different types of capital, the way that we've worked in our office is basically by saying, what's the solution that we're looking for? What's our ideal outcome? And what's the right type of capital to try to solve it? So as Matt said, sometimes that might be a for-profit investment, sometimes that might be a philanthropic grant, and sometimes it might be a new kind of initiative that we incubate internally. Yes. One that I'll mention is right outside, we have these orange statues as part of the If Then exhibit. This is an example of an initiative in which we kind of said, well, gosh, Lyda for a long time has believed that science is the answer. That's kind of our motto that we have always driven our work by. And we really need incredible STEM professionals to rise through the ranks, grow our STEM workforce to solve some of these big challenges in our world. Yeah. And what better way to do that than inspire the next generation by reaching them on screens, through statue exhibits, through museum walls and textbooks, to make sure that they feel really prepared and excited to take on these STEM careers, yes. And to see what's possible for them. And so I bring that up as an example of just starting with the solution, starting with the problem that you're trying to solve and figuring out, kind of backtracking from there. And then going back to kind of the mission of it all, I mentioned Lyda's kind of motto that science is the answer. Having that as kind of a North Star, I think, helps us in all of these areas of our work, whether it's through our scientific research portfolio or nature, inspiring the next generation of STEM professionals. It's always having kind of that North Star of science is the answer to guide us.
I love it. I'm glad you brought up the orange statue. To all of my audience out there, you should come to Pegasus Park in one wonderful evening and commune with the orange statue. Right? It is a transformative experience, and you might hear voices as well. You might hear voices. So thank you. I love that, Lili, and you put it so well. So thank you for that. Again, context and texture that I think is very important for our audience to hear. So thank you so much for sharing that perspective. So now what you both described is basically a balanced ecosystem, one where vision, capital, and purpose continuously circulate in this healthy kind of environment. As momentum grows, it raises a powerful question. Where does it all go from here, right? Yeah. This is part of a continuum that started 40 or so years ago. We are very present in the moment now. But where does it go from here? So as you both look across the North Texas landscape and beyond to some degree, from Pegasus Park to new biomanufacturing hubs and AI-driven startups, all that good stuff, what signals give you confidence that the ecosystem is entering its next chapter? And then what are the early indicators that tell you the flywheel is really turning, right? What's the tea leaves telling you? What are you hearing? And we'll start with you, Lili. Is that okay?
Sure. I think we've seen a lot of tea leaves kind of turning. One thing that I'll mention is that, so we opened this campus about 4 years ago, and we've seen a lot of new tenants come, both locally. One of the key reasons why we opened this campus was to make sure that innovators from places like UT Southwestern and UT Dallas and SMU, UT Arlington had a place to go once they spun out of the university setting, and so that we could keep the talent here, keep the companies here. Ultimately, when they have their exits, they can reinvest back into our communities. But one of the indicators that we've seen that's been really exciting is that we've also seen a huge influx of companies from outside the region come here. So just in this BioLabs space, we have more than 20 companies here. And at this point, almost half of them have relocated from outside of the region. Wow. So we have companies from Boston, from New York, the Bay Area, and the middle of the country too. So it's been exciting to just see the interest from all parts of the country in coming here. And then a couple of other things that I'll mention. It's been great to see that as kind of this momentum has built, we've seen all sorts of players within our ecosystem really want to figure out how they can really get involved and be part of this growth. So for example, our universities, we have 6 universities at this point at Pegasus. So the fact that they see Pegasus as a place to really add some value and also make sure that their students are being trained for future biotech jobs that will be here in the region, that their innovators have a place to go when they spin out, are all things that I think show us that we're headed in the right direction. That is awesome. And you know, the companies that are coming here from outside of the region says a lot. It says a lot. So thank you for that. Matt, do you want to add something to that, if you would, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with all of Lili's points. I think there's so much room for improvement or ways to get that flywheel maybe spinning faster.
Yes.
But some of the signals I think that we've seen lately, I mean, even just walking into BioLabs today, I saw 2 former, so Riata was a local company that was acquired by Biogen a couple of years ago for several $1 billion. I saw 2 former Riata execs who now, one's leading operations at a national biotech firm, and the other is a CEO of a startup that is in clinical trials now that has their headquarters here on campus. And so that is a flywheel that we hoped would happen, where, you know, you've had successful company exits and then the management talent stays in town and does their next thing, supports the next company. And that's something we're seeing more and more of. In addition to, I think, the management talent that's coming in from elsewhere, because so many people are moving to North Texas right now. Another part of the flywheel that's been really exciting to see has been the venture capital interest. And so, this is a space that Lyda and LH Capital has been in for a long time. And the companies locally have, the successful companies have arranged for really blue chip syndicates of investors. But I'll tell you, we've been hosting investor events kind of annually here on campus, and the caliber and just the quantity of these really blue chip investors is growing. Their interest in the region is growing. And even looking 3 years ago versus maybe this year, now we're talking to venture capital firms who are not making their first investment, they're making their second or their third investment in a company that's local. And it just shows you that, they're seeing something here that's investable. And in a tricky investment environment, it's so exciting to see that that's actually growing here in North Texas. So that's been fun to see.
In a tricky investment environment, it actually is growing in North Texas. We're going to frame that, right? That's out of all of that. That's exciting. That is so exciting. So, thank you for sharing that. And the thing about the investor community, Matt and Lili, you guys know this. The more they're familiar with the opportunities, but also the culture, and also the energy, and also the other things that come along with that, I think that breeds. At least it influences that level of confidence, right? And so it's a numbers game. The more you get to know people, the more you have conversations with them, the more you have an opportunity to tell that story, the better it is for the ecosystem. And that's part of what Inside Innovation is about, being a platform to do things such as that. So finally, as leaders helping this next phase, you're the leaders guiding this next phase. What excites you the most about the future? So park that. And then how do you see Lyda Hill Philanthropies and LH Capital evolving, not only as catalysts for growth, but as stewards of the culture, right? As stewards of the culture, because anything that is sustainable is built on a solid foundation, i.e. the catalyst, but it's that culture. How do you keep that culture going, moving forward? And what makes this region so unique? So what excites you? And then what do you see as your role as stewards of the culture of collaboration? And whoever wants to jump on it first, feel free.
You've got it, Matt.
Want me to jump on it first?
Matt, you take it.
I'll jump on that first.
All right.
What excites me, I would say, I was thinking about this. It's so exciting to see the amount of interest at our local universities for this industry.
Yes.
I mean, even at medical school like UT Southwestern, they have they have a biotech club for their PhDs and postdocs. It's like 100 plus interested. It's a vibrant
club.
biotech club, right?
Oh,
And just
500.
500, sorry, 500, right?
We're LinkedIn buddies, by the way.
Yeah.
Hey, club.
And I mean, that's exciting because that is the future of this industry here in some respects. So that's really exciting. I think along those same lines, later this month, the Texas A&M, which is based in College Station, but they're having you are familiar. They have something called the National Center for Therapeutics Manufacturing based down there. They decided to open up their second site here in Dallas at Pegasus Park. Opens up this month. Over the course of the year, we'll train about 300 folks in biomanufacturing skills. And that's sort of like certificate programs, and again, kind of open to all to come and try that. And also to the companies, talked about biomanufacturing hubs, those companies moving here for biomanufacturing now will have a way to sort of customize their the skills for their workforce based out of Dallas, which is great. So that's exciting. We're really excited to have that energy and activity on campus starting this month. And then I would say another thing you talked about, kind of how do we steward this? I mean, we don't feel like it's our responsibility to orchestrate this entire ecosystem. Like that is not what's happening. We're excited to catalyze some things and then have others come in and take over certain aspects. We're not hosting the top life sciences industry conference. You all are. IC3 is incredible. We can help as a sponsor, but it's the amount that has grown and just the energy in the room and the quality of attendees has grown so much over the years that it's been great to see. And now we're truly just a participant. We didn't even speak at IC3 this year. Yeah. We are just there to learn and network, which has been wonderful. And then in a similar fashion, just this month again, there's a biotech firm based on the East Coast with actually now a second site here in Dallas called Alloy Therapeutics. Yes. They have just started something called the Alloy Futures Biotech Startup Academy, which is a cohort of 20 students, kind of mid-career professionals.
I was there at the event.
There you go. They're interested in biotech, want to run biotech companies, maybe haven't done that before.
Yep.
That's a new thing. That's not us. We are happy to support that, but it's so nice to see entrants coming in from elsewhere to kind of claim the mantle of different aspects of this ecosystem and adding a ton of value in ways that we never would be able to do. So that's something that I think we're excited about, and also kind of excited to steward, if you will, to ensure that others feel welcome to bring their complementary strengths to the ecosystem.
Matt, I love that, man. One of the things, and thank you for the comments on IC3. We were very excited about it. It was a good turnout. I had a chance to speak to the audience from the stage, and one of the things that I mentioned was we are not the ecosystem in and of ourselves as BioNTX, right? And I pointed to the audience and I said, you are the ecosystem. You have the power to cultivate and transform and build this ecosystem into what you want it to be. And a lot of those postdocs and the early space companies, they were excited to hear that, because in a healthy ecosystem isn't top down. It's on the ground level. It's the roots. It's where the earth and the roots meet together, and that's what creates the healthy ecosystem. A product of that are the tall trees that you see, but the real work is at the ground level. At the ground level. So thank you so much for sharing that. And so, Lili, I'll let you close with, again, what excites you most about the future as not necessarily stewards, but as a key part of that ecosystem as we move forward?
Sure. Well, I'll go a little bit bigger picture. I'm really excited about the idea that anyone is out there saying, I'm looking to start a biotech company, and Dallas is the place where I can do that. I can start it, or I can move my company there. I can scale it, and I will have all of the resources and strategic partners that I need to be successful there. In the community of mentors and advisors and all of the things that are so important for innovation to be successful. So the idea that anyone out there is looking at Dallas as that place, which I truly believe that it is, I think that's extremely exciting. And then in terms of just being steward, to your point about stewards, I think I get really excited about, our team is always trying to think about what the next big thing is that's going to help this ecosystem really go to the next level. Lyda is definitely a big ideas person. She really likes big ideas. And so we have a lot of fun on our team, because we basically get to think about, what are we kind of going back to the beginning of this episode, we were talking about creating kind of the conditions for success. What is the next big thing that we could be doing to ensure a successful future for Dallas is really exciting.
What a great note to end this on. Matt and Lili, can we do this again at some time in the future? Would you guys be so kind to do that? It is just a joy to be around you. It's an honor representing BioNTX to be a part of this, both at a professional level as well as a personal level. So, Lili, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Matt, thank you. Thanks, you both Eric. For being here. What we've talked about, as you'll hear, is more than a story about real estate or investment. It is a story anchored in belief. Belief that innovation can serve people, that philanthropy can fuel industry, and that purpose can scale alongside profit. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of BioNTX Presents Inside Innovation. If you're a member, sponsor, or supporter of BioNTX, we deeply value your continued support and contributions to the ecosystem. If you're interested in membership, sponsorship, or supporting BioNTX, our mission, please scan the QR code on screen to learn how you can become a part of this growing, thriving, energetic, and exciting community. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Visit biontx.org to stay connected to the heart of North Texas biotech and life sciences community. Because North Texas innovation is not just happening, it is accelerating. And as I always say, be well, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us.